what we're gonna get into is one of the dumbest controversies I've ever seen in sports. And it is the story of how my Chicago Bulls banned headbands from their entire team from wearing them. So let's just go back in history and have some laughs, shall we? So this guy that you were seeing right here is Donald Slick Watts. He's the first guy to ever wear a headband. However, whenever I hear Slick, I always think of Vince Vaughn in Wedding Crashers. When he goes, I love maple syrup. I love it on pizza. I'll sometimes throw it in my hair. What do you think holds it up, Slick? It's a great movie. So Donald Slick Watts is the first guy that ever wore a headband. And then it progressed later on in the late 80s when, as you're seeing right there, Clifford Robinson obviously donned one. This got so big that the Portland Trail Blazers actually released a song that said, "Can I get a headband?" With Bonzi Wells and Brian Grant. I mean, you remember the
Brian Grant
Blazers slash
Bonzi.
How they were. That's almost another story in and of itself. Why were they called the Jail Blazers? Why were they hated on so much? So we'll do that another time. But now sticking with the Bulls. So Jamal Crawford was a guy out of Michigan. He donned a headband at Michigan, and he also would do that with the Chicago Bulls when he was drafted. And here's how he did it. Emulating Watts, the guy that we just showed. It just looked pretty cool and nobody was really doing it. You ever have that epiphany when you were younger where it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna wear the armband like Kobe when I'm playing intramurals because nobody's doing it.
Absolutely, you know what I liked? There was a weird, Reggie Miller used to wear. He used to wear, they used to have the wrist sweatbands, the same material, it was just on a finger.
I remember Iverson wore that.
And I was like, what are the finger sweatbands for? And I loved it, and I think I found one, because how hard are these things to find in 95?
Right.
And it's not like you can go on Amazon and be like, where are the finger sweatbands? So it was one of those things I loved, but no, at least I thought, I didn't know Iverson did it. To my knowledge, I don't know anyone else did it. But what's the point? Does this make you shoot better? Reggie Miller shot like this anyway.
Right, yeah, he literally threw up the X for Des Bryant when he shot. So Jamal Crawford here maybe shows a little bit of unity with the headbands, because there was a show of support in July 2000. During one game, as their freshman leader, Jamal Crawford was forced out. So they all wore headbands to like show their support for him. So now we go to the NBA and we introduce you to a main character who at that time went by Ron Artest, but now we just call him Meta. Thank God we don't call him Panda's friend anymore. So here is what occurred in December of 2000. He, as in Artest, broke out a headband for the first time this season, which he began the game wearing around his neck and said was a tribute to his then teammate Jamal Crawford, who also wears one. The only reason he did it was because of this quote. He's helping with my ball handling. We're real close. So here's what occurred, and you're gonna know this name immediately, because he is the coach that got OJ Mayo to USC. It is Tim Floyd, bad coach. Let's just call a spade a spade.
He got OJ Mayo to USC though.
He did. How much did he pay?
What do you mean paid? No, you know what he paid him?
Preposterous question.
Paid him an opportunity at a world-class education.
Totally, for 1 year. So,
he's a smart kid.
Totally, Tim Floyd, not a smart guy. Although he seems like a kid with this dumb rhetoric you're gonna see. I told him he, as in Artest, had been playing soft since he had it on, the headband. I've got a rule that all 15 guys can wear a headband as long as they play hard. I don't care. Dude, where did this come from? This is the earliest sign that at least I found upon my research that was like, yeah. The Bulls actually hated headbands a long time ago. So it was like already within the culture of this franchise. But to call somebody soft for wearing a headband, that has to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard from a coach, ever.
It seems like one of those attempts at coming up with some motivational factors. Maybe you're in a slump, you see this guy's particularly not rebounding as hard, or maybe there's some element of his play that isn't as gritty as you'd expect it to be. And he's like, I don't know what's wrong, but I'll come up with something. There's a headband, let's say that's soft. Maybe that'll trigger him to be tougher. And it just made it up.
It's a headband.
Exactly, no, he needs to come up with something. He's like, hey Ron, at the time, hey Ron, you're playing kind of soft. I was gonna call him Meta.
Yeah, you were.
You're playing kind of soft. Is it a headband?
Yeah.
You know, who knows?
Totally.
He's trying, he's reaching.
He was trying, but then he failed because the conspiracy around this, as you're gonna see right here, was that Tim Floyd benched Ron Artest actually lost his starting position, came off the bench, we believe, because of the headband. By the way, love seeing Elton Brand's bolded name, because if you do remember, Shitty Bulls History 101, Elton Brand was traded on draft night as an all-star for Tyson Chandler and Eddie Curry.
Oh, that's right.
Artest had lost his starting position, came off the bench. He thought it was either because he had been a little too feisty against opposing players. Well, that's par for the course, and rode hecklers in the stands, or because he was wearing a headband for 3 games. I'm not soft. Nobody calls me out, Artest said. For anybody who calls me soft, I'll rearrange how they think in a hurry. Well, that's a threat.
I love Ron Artest. I've always loved Ron Artest, man.
Yeah, coach doesn't like me wearing a headband. I'm not soft. I'll rearrange your freaking face if you say that to me again. And he would.
Tim Floyd said, I think I misjudged this idea.
Yes, and then
motivation went the wrong direction.
And then not long after, of course, he was let go by the franchise. But now this whole headband movement was taking over, where even the Statesman Journal in 2001 had this weird headline that says the NBA has become headband haven. I mean, like, where is this coming from? So then the Northwest Herald wrote via one absolute hater, the headband added to that sleek look. It was aerodynamic, but today don't be coming with the droopy shorts, the oversized tanks, and that little headband. They all look like fools.
Okay, I was hoping
it would go there.
No, I was, yeah, in a way, but I was wishing I had actually jumped in before that to say, this is one of those things. Remember the dress code that happened also with the NBA?
Of course.
Because they were about the players looking like thugs.
Forefront.
So this was something that some reason stuck in people's heads as a thug look. Hey, look at these guys making our league look trashy, because then here come the droopy shorts, and here come the I can't believe you're wearing that, and here comes the jewelry, and what's up with that earring? Hey, what does that tattoo mean? Is it explicit? What does that word mean? Is it ebonics? So once all that starts flowing, it just gets lumped in, and now it just becomes a symbol without really any good reason.
Wasn't there a Chappelle Show episode on ebonics? Anybody? No.
Oh,
well,
it's been a while.
There's insight into my dumb mind. So Lute Olson then had this to say, Hall of Fame coach, the headbands compress their brains. The game's about hustle, heart, and playing your tail off on every possession. A real quote from, unsurprisingly, a white coach. So I love Lute Olson. I love those Arizona teams. I really do. I love watching Jason Gardner and Miles Simon and Salim Stoudemire and Channing Frye. Like, those teams were good. But this shows the disconnect that mainly the elder statesmen of the game had with their opinions on the headbands, which sort of shows you what we're up against in this headband fight.
Now, when somebody says something like that in public and they want to be taken seriously, it's everyone else in the room's responsibility to say, what are you talking about? Stop. Because what if someone says, hey, you know what? You know, there's another rule in the NBA. Keep your jerseys tucked in, right? What if someone says, hey, you know, I have a problem, ref. There's this drawstring on my shorts and it compresses my waist too much, makes my legs numb. I'm gonna have to pull the shirt out. Right. No, they're gonna say, what are you talking about? That's stupid. Right. You just wanna get out of tucking your jersey in. Why can't someone make the same point? It's restrictive things around your head and waist because headbands are so tight.
You know the funny thing is about the jersey, and then I'm gonna get back to this, is that Kyrie Irving actually takes his jersey out of his shorts. A lot.
I've noticed that.
A lot, and like no one cares. Nikola Jokic does the same thing. No one cares.
But sometimes it is uncomfortable. So if it's real tight, if it's tucked in tight, it probably pulls on the top part of the jersey, and you want to have some arm freedom, right? Who knows? Like there's a comfort thing, right?
Yeah.
So I see both sides, and I see why they want it tucked in, and I see why guys don't want to tuck it in.
Well, there's fine people on both sides, straight up. Yeah. So let's get back to Jamal Crawford here. Again, like this is what he did when he was with the Bulls. He would don a headband. It was very true in his early years. And yet he went on to say, it might not be fashionable, but I just think I look good in headbands on the basketball court. Much respect. So now we get to another key player in this entire story, Eddie Robinson. You probably don't know who he is. It's totally fine. He was on the Bulls for a few years, but he is the focal point of this story because this is where the disconnect totally occurred between the Chicago Bulls franchise and its core players. So here is a little bit of context about Eddie Robinson, how he was really a great teammate prior to going to the Bulls, and then he was painted in a negative light, mainly surrounding the headband. At the start of the playoffs in 2001, the stumbling Charlotte Hornets adopted headbands to show team solidarity, then thumped favored Miami in 3 straight first-round games. Baron Davis went on to say, there's power in the headbands, no doubt. When you see a 13-year vet agree to wear a headband, that means something. It shows this team is together, playing as one. So, he also would go, like the 13-year veteran, having to, not even having, but like wanting to wear a headband in solidarity for everybody. That was spearheaded by Eddie Robinson. So now we go to the Bulls and when he was signed by the Bulls. So Jamal Crawford missed the first 3 quarters of the 01-02 season with an ACL tear. First game after his return, Eddie Robinson floated the idea that the entire team wear a headband, like Crawford did as a show of solidarity, of unity and respect for their returning comrade. Fred Hoiberg looked completely ridiculous, to no surprise, and took his off at halftime. His nickname is the Mayor. He's not cool. All right, so then here's another main player in this. It is Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner and chairman of the Bulls since 1985, and his underling, is that the word? Underling? Understudy, thank you. John Paxson, who really went from 0 to 100 of baldness real quick. So here's what one writer wrote for DNA Info, which is a branch in Chicago. The rule reportedly emanated from Bulls owner Jerry Reinsdorf. The rule, as in banning headbands, was also championed by John Paxson. Quote, when he took over and wanted to restore an image sullied by players like Eddie Robinson. Why? Why does this happen? Paxson, real quick, observed Eddie Robinson wearing the headband around his neck during practice, believed this presented a choke hazard, much like Ron Artest a few years back, the same sort of pattern is what we're seeing, and advised Robinson to stop wearing it around his neck. Robinson obviously refused to stop wearing the headband, causing Paxson to ban headbands altogether. Now here's where it comes full circle, because just a few years later, this is pretty surprising, Jerry Reinsdorf, and this shows you his way of thinking, believed to be behind the no headband rule, so we're hearing contrasting styles between Paxson and Reinsdorf, at one point asked, because he owns the White Sox as well, catcher AJ Pierzynski and Joe Creedy to get haircuts. Again, I'm trying to provide context here of where these minds in sports are.
Well, a lot of these minds in sports and chairmen and people in charge like to flex their muscle on that. So they see a grown-ass man and they want to control him. And they're like, what way, and this is all subconscious thought process, what way can I control him? I don't like, maybe, you know what? Oh, sorry, I forget if we're cursing or not in this section.
I don't care.
If John Paxson didn't like the way the headband looked around Eddie Robinson's neck, it's just a personal thing, right? Maybe you don't like it, that's fine. You know what I think? I think it's odd when baseball players have a bunch of chains around the neck. It's only because I'm thinking, if I was wearing chains while I'm playing baseball, you know what I'm gonna do? Mess up. So anyway, what if John Paxson went up to him and said, hey, Eddie, take that off, man. That looks ridiculous. Isn't that choking your neck? And Eddie Robinson says, fuck no. That's probably what happened. And John Paxson got in his feelings and said, how dare this young punk talk to me like that? Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna go nuclear because I need to flex my power. I like this power. I like telling grown-ass men what to do. And you know what? He disrespected me. He's supposed to bow to me. I don't like that. Let me prove it to everybody how powerful I am.
By the way, the chain comment that you had reminded me of when Aqib Talib grabbed the hell out of Michael Crabtree's chain and just smacked it away off his neck. That was fantastic. Okay, so Eddie Robinson would say, I didn't get that, as in John Paxson's rule. I think that was just his way of picking at the players, so much like you were saying. Come on, man, the headband ain't new. I was wearing them in college. I was wearing them in Charlotte. It's a part of the game. I don't keep them, I throw them and give them away to kids. I was wearing them in college, I was wearing them in Charlotte. That's a part of the game. So, sorry, that's a repeat. So here's what occurred. And the weird times of the NBA in 2006, where Jermaine O'Neal was even fined $5,000 for simply wearing a band a little too high. It was an inch too high is what O'Neal said. They said we can't wear wristbands on our elbow. They said we can't wear 2 wristbands on one arm. I had it on my elbow. I couldn't believe it when I found out. This shows you the progressiveness, by the way, of the NBA and how the NFL still wants to fine players for their sock height.
The NBA figured out to a degree what they were doing wrong and how it was gonna hurt their brand. And yeah, as you said, the NFL I think would thrive It would lose some people, but then again, it's still football. So those same people would say they're lost and they'd still watch.
Totally. Ben Wallace is another key player in all this. He was signed by the Bulls in 2006. This was a huge free agent signing because he broke away from the Pistons when they were winning and signed a big deal with the Chicago Bulls. So this is the key player in all of this. Wallace said ex-Pistons teammate Clifford Robinson helped him start his practice of wearing a headband. He told me I should try it, and that's a reminder not to let my head get too big in this league. So look, you're already learning off the top here that it's a motivational tool. That's all that it is. There's a reason why. So what was funny for me, at least, as a Bulls fan growing up, I saw promos like this where Ben Wallace was in a headband.
Oh, and those wristbands are above his elbows.
Oh man, find him.
They're like,
Get him out
like
of
the
here.
Ultimate Warrior from the 90s in the wrestling.
Love the Ultimate Warrior. So the headband rule began before Wallace came to the Bulls. Apparently the execs in hierarchy didn't like the way Eddie Robinson and Eddie Curry were rocking theirs. Too black, too wrong is what Scoop Jackson wrote, which I concur with. So general manager John Paxson instituted, or whatever word is appropriate, a team policy similar to George Steinbrenner's facial hair, so true, and grooming policy with the Yankees that when playing for the Bulls, you cannot wear headbands, and upon being hired by Paxson, Scott Skiles, bad coach, inherited the rule, and it became his responsibility to protect it. So here's what occurred, and this is where it totally comes full circle, is that when the Bulls were playing against the New York Knicks in Ben Wallace's tenure, he would totally Scott Skiles. He would like put on the head, he'd not have the headband in when he would check in for the game at the Garden. And then once he'd go in, he'd take it on, and then he would get benched for wearing it. Then he would take it off, and it was a seesaw thing between Skiles, who again, as Scoop Jackson rightly wrote, wanted to be protected by the Bulls' hierarchy. Blatantly defying Coach Skiles' team rule prohibiting headbands, Wallace broke one out to the match. The Bulls' road uniform Saturday night against at Madison Square Garden. That was in 2006, remember. Skiles removed him just 2 minutes and 2 seconds after tip-off for breaking the team rule. After Wallace was removed, there were a bunch of coaches that went over to talk to him. He followed suit. When Wallace finally removed it during a dead ball situation, he had to remove his bleeping headband. He goes back in with 2:41 left. Skiles called for him to re-enter. He did so with $1:45 left in the first quarter. Played 14:36 in the first half. Grabbed 4 rebounds, but the turmoil didn't end there, writes Casey Johnson. Wallace slipped the headband back on just before the second half was set to start. And what do you know? He was immediately benched for Malik Allen. When Wallace again removed the headband during a timeout with 5:46 left in the third quarter, he re-entered just 81 seconds later. That is how ridiculous this was. It was a shit show for the Bulls of this stupid policy. So Ben Wallace went on to say, if you know the rules and break them, you expect to be punished. I can't try to put myself above the team or anybody else and wear a headband like I did. I'm man enough to take the punishment, but I'm not sorry. And my favorite quote of all, I just felt like wearing it.
Crazy.
Don't blame you.
I made this adult decision for my life in my headband. I looked up what the Bulls' record was that season, 06-07 season.
Yep.
They finished third in the division, in the Central.
Yep.
They went to the playoffs, lost in the Eastern Conference semis, right? At least my assumption was that it must have been a season that was full of a bunch of distractions, these ones. Imagine what you could do if you're not ginning up all of this controversy within your own team, causing divisions and they talk about poisons in the locker room in any sport. Oh, you don't want that guy on your team. He's gonna come in your locker room. He's gonna be a pariah.
Yeah.
Suddenly there's gonna be turmoil everywhere. Sometimes the general managers and the owners and head coaches all, in this case, collude together. They're the poison in the locker room. Who wants to play for these guys? Who wants to be around someone who's telling you what to put on and when you do it and then switch it and 35 seconds later have you put it on, take it off again, and then implement to make sure that your head coach follows through on this dumbass rule? I thought they were playing basketball. Maybe let's work on the play.
By the way, shocker, players talk to each other. And you know what's gonna happen? Other players are gonna talk to potential free agents that would go to the Chicago Bulls, and they're gonna tell them everything. So to your point, it would also deflect any sort of way of signing a big key free agent because they have the dumbest policy in all of sports. Ben Wallace would say, I would hope they'd look at it and see there's no harm in wearing a headband. Then again, it's their rule. They make the calls. LeBron even weighed in 2006. I've worn a headband for a long time. It's a routine. I don't know what I'd do if I couldn't wear one. If it is something you've been doing your whole life, it doesn't matter what field you're in, athletics, business, If someone comes and tells you to switch your routine, obviously nothing good is going to happen. There was only one writer that I recall that actually wrote this. This was the headline: Bulls' headbands ban makes no sense. Totally. The only person that wrote that. Carmelo said, it gives me comfort. When Carmelo was good. I always have to have something on my head. I don't think I can play without a headband. I wouldn't feel comfortable. It's part of my uniform. I gotta have it. DeMar Johnson that year as well. That's messed up. Ben Wallace is a vet, established player in the league, a role model, good image. What's wrong with wearing a headband? Great point. So then Skiles finally made an exception to the headband rule for Ben Wallace. About frickin' time. In 2007, we still have a no headband rule. I just left it up to the guys who have been here. If they wanted to make an exception for Ben, I was fine with it. They were fine with it. Newsflash, you should all be fine with it. Why would you have this rule instituted? So you know what happened actually? Soon thereafter, that quote was in 2007. In 2008, bye-bye to Ben Wallace when they sent him an 11-player deal. So then we introduced some of our last characters. Richard Rip Hamilton, who signed from the Detroit Pistons to the Chicago Bulls. This was a big story when they did sign him. Because obviously, can we go back to the picture for 1 second? He had the mask on, right? Mm-hmm. Now, it was from when he suffered a facial injury, but he kept it on because he played great with it on. The only thing that kept it stable, however, was the headband. So they lifted the rule for Rip Hamilton. In 2016, apparently the headband rule was still in effect because Bobby Portis, I believe that a rookie, tweeted out, "I wish I could wear the headband." This was still going on in 2016. So Eddie Robinson would say, "I wouldn't want to sit down with John Paxson because I'd probably put my hands on him. I was in Paxson's office like a bad kid in school." Like, this tells you everything. Yep. I'm always in the office talking to Paxson about some comments I made in the paper, basketball related. Then he'll try playing mind games and be like, "Did you say this? Pax, I see you got my quotes highlighted right in front of you. So why would you even ask me a question like that?" Of course I said it. We don't even need to be in this triangle offense.
I'm telling you, man, it was so many things. Didn't I call it? I didn't know these extra details. But he didn't like other things he was doing.
Yeah.
He didn't like the way he was talking to the papers. He didn't like the way didn't like this damn triangle offense.
So he had it out for Eddie Robinson. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and then it spread. You didn't like the guy. Okay, cool. Try and find some other way. That's bad.
There has to be something else
horrible
here.
management.
There has to be something else here. It could be the exchange that you shadowed, or it could be something that one of them did to piss off the other. And obviously we don't know what that is. I would love to know what that is. But now the Bulls are allowing players to wear headbands.
Eddie Robinson did realize, as all men do with wife or girlfriend, when they ask you a question, they already know the answer. Except he saw John Paxson's highlighted. Or he says, right. "John, I see you got my quotes highlighted. Why are you asking me if I said it?"
It's like having a whiteboard and it's like, dumbest Eddie Robinson quotes. Eddie, did you say that?
Your girlfriend texts you or calls you. She's like, "Were you out late last night?" Well, she already knows.
Yeah, of course.
She definitely knows. She's not asking me because she's curious. Or she needs an answer because I'm not sure if these things match up. She's got you recorded.
Of course.
2 o'clock in the morning, coming out the club.
Yeah. So look, it's a messed up history. Don't really understand it. Never will. But the Bulls lifted the ban when Rajon Rondo just did Rondo and started wearing them backwards and upside down, and then he would cover the NBA logo. And obviously at that point, you know that if you mess with Rondo, serious stuff is coming. So with that being said, the dumbest controversy again, as I prefaced, I will double down. The dumbest controversy I have ever seen in sports. And it started for whatever dumbass reason, continued on for roughly 15 years, and now it's somewhat lifted. However, I still haven't seen many Chicago Bulls players wear a headband. So I gotta think that it's still going on. Thoughts on anything that you heard that maybe piqued your interest or your own reactions to this controversy? Let us know in the comments section. Please subscribe to 2IT Sports. If you made it to the end of this video, mazel tov. If you want to see more, hit the bell and hit subscribe. Why don't you?